Welcome to the annual disclosure training for the Ohio Department of Taxation. This training is required each year for anyone working on the fraud quiz or the identity confirmation quiz. At the end of the training, return the completed acknowledgement form to your supervisor. This course may be found online, but we're also going to review it in this video. 2018 Annual Disclosure Training. Welcome to the Ohio Department of Taxation's Disclosure Training. All current, intermittent, and employees who contract with ODT must complete this course by December 4th, 2017. Anyone that joins ODT during 2018 will also need to complete this training as soon as possible after beginning employment or prior to employment when applicable. Course completions will be tracked by a sign-off sheet you can print from the course completions section. You should navigate through this training by scrolling through the page. If there are supplemental materials for a topic, a link will be available for you to access them. You can use this information later as a resource by using the menu on the left-hand side of the page to go directly to the topic in which you are interested. Course overview. Some people ask why we have a disclosure training every year. One reason we're required to do so under the Internal Revenue Code. But more than that, it's important to review the rules about safeguarding taxpayer information and to make sure we're doing everything we can to prevent unauthorized disclosure. The public depends on us to keep their information safe and secure. It is important that we only use their information for proper tax administration purposes. In this training, we discuss the general and the specific provisions of the Ohio Revised Code, as well as relevant portions of the Internal Revenue Code. We're sometimes asked how and why we set requirements for disclosure of information when there seems to be a conflict among the various sources of law. For example, Ohio Revised Code Section 5703.41 says that, at the request of any officer, board, or commission of the state or any political division thereof, the Department of Taxation shall furnish any information to such officer, board, or commission, ... On the other hand, Revised Code Section 5747.18 says that income tax information shall not be released except in accordance with a proper judicial order. Which of these two provisions govern? The first statute quoted was written in the 1930s, long before there was an income tax. The second statute was written in 1972 and applies specifically to income tax. Because the second statute became effective later in time, is more specific, and goes farther to safeguard taxpayer information, we base our individual income tax disclosure standards on it. As you can anticipate, some decisions regarding disclosure can be difficult. Please remember that you have lots of resources to help you in making those difficult decisions. The materials in this training should help, and you can always check with your supervisor for guidance. Of course, you are welcome to contact the disclosure officer anytime you like. Thanks to all the people in the department who contributed time and effort in making this training possible, and most of all, thank you to all of you for the great job you do every day in safeguarding and protecting taxpayer information. Why is this important? High ethical standards must be maintained. Employees of ODT must maintain high ethical standards because of their position of public trust. Maintaining the public trust is vital to the administration of a voluntary tax system. All the information included in this training is designed to protect you, the taxpayer, practitioners, and the public. Furthermore, as we increasingly rely on technology to conduct our day-to-day operations, data protection and security have become vitally important to ODT. Cyber incidents can arise from both deliberate attacks and unintentional events. We can minimize the risk of unintentional access and possible disclosure of information by carefully safeguarding the sensitive data that we are entrusted with. Federal and state tax information is confidential and cannot be accessed or disclosed by ODT employees except for official purposes. Federal and state criminal and civil laws apply to violations of disclosure law. Additionally, an ODT directive provides for disciplinary action for violations. Key terms to review and read. Disclosure. Making known to any person in any manner whatsoever a return or return information. Inspect or browse, to view in any manner whatever a return or return information. Return, any tax or information return, declaration of estimated tax, or claim for a refund required by, provided for, or permitted under the law. Return information includes taxpayer's identity, the nature, source, or amount of income, payments, receipts, deductions, exemptions, credits, assets, liabilities, tax withheld, deficiencies, names of dependents, or any other data from a return. Return information also includes the status of whether a return was filed, under examination, or subject to other investigation or processing, including collection activities. Confidentiality rule. Return information shall be confidential and, except for an official need and use, no employee shall disclose any return or return information obtained by him/her in any matter in connection with his/her service as an employee. The term employee includes former employees. Federal tax information, FTI. Return or return information as defined by 26 U.S.C. 6103 received from the Internal Revenue Service. For example, a copy of a federal Form 1040 received from a taxpayer is not FTI, while a federal Form 1040 received from the IRS is FTI. If information is FTI, anything derived from that information is also FTI, including copies or records containing FTI, transcribing, writing the FTI onto a file system, and calculating additional amounts owed to the state based on the FTI. FTI and you. Do you have access to FTI? Do you work with estimated assessments? Do you have access to taxpayers' FAGI? Do you use Cognos or TDSR? Do you work with reports or documents created using IRS extracts to create assessments or audits? Do you have access to STARS? These are just a few examples of everyday duties that very likely include FTI. Safeguarding federal tax information is critically important. As the employee of a state agency who works with the federal tax returns and return information, you are responsible for protecting that information. Internal Revenue Code Section 6103 contains requirements for both protecting and disclosing confidential federal returns and return information. These provisions apply to state employees who work with federal tax data. Section 6103 prohibits employees from disclosing federal returns or return information unless allowed by law. You need to understand and apply the provisions of Section 6103 that relate to your job performance. Click here to open an Adobe document displaying the entire code section. You are responsible with complying with the entire code section, but if you are already familiar with it, you are not required to read it every year to satisfactorily complete this training. Also, you can come back to this training at any time to reference this document. Definition of return information. The definition of return information for federal purposes is very broad. It includes, but is not limited to, any information besides the return itself that IRS obtained from any source or developed through any means that relates to the potential liability of any person under the code for any tax, penalty, interest, fine, forfeiture, or other imposition or offense. Information extracted from a return, including the names of dependents or the location of business. The taxpayer's name, address, and identification number. Information collected by the IRS about any person's tax affairs, even if identifiers like name, address, and identification number are deleted. Whether a return was filed, is or will be examined, or subject to other investigation or processing, including collection activities. Information contained on transcripts of accounts. It is very important to remember that if information is FTI, anything derived from that information is also FTI, including copies or records containing FTI, transcribing, writing FTI onto a file or system, and calculating additional amounts owed to the state based on the FTI. Criminal and civil considerations. Be aware that you cannot access or disclose confidential FTI unless a provision of the Internal Revenue Code authorized the access or disclosure. Unauthorized disclosure or access could subject you to criminal penalties under IRC Section 7213 and Section 7213A. A taxpayer may also seek civil damages against you under IRC Section 7431. Criminal penalties for unauthorized disclosure of FTI. Section 7213 specifies that willful unauthorized disclosure of returns or return information by an employee or former employee is a felony. The penalty can be a fine of up to $5,000 or up to 5 years in jail or both, plus cost of prosecution. Under Section 7213A, willful unauthorized access or inspection of taxpayer records by an employee or former employee is a misdemeanor. This applies to both paper documents and electronic information. Violators can also be subject to a fine of up to $1,000 and/or sentenced up to 1 year in prison. Click here to open an Adobe document displaying the entire code section. You are responsible with complying with the entire code section, but if you are already familiar with it, you are not required to read it every year to satisfactorily complete this training. Also, you can come back to this training at any time to reference this document. Civil penalties for unauthorized disclosure of FTI. A taxpayer whose return or return information has been knowingly or negligently inspected or disclosed by an employee is in violation of Section 6103 may seek civil damages. Section 7431 allows a taxpayer to institute action in district court for damages where there is an unauthorized inspection or disclosure. If the court finds that there has been an unauthorized inspection or disclosure, the taxpayer may receive damages of $1,000 for each unauthorized access or disclosure, or actual damages, whichever is greater, plus punitive damages in the case of willful or gross negligence, and costs of the action, which may include attorney's fees. There is no liability under Section 7431 if the disclosure was the result of a good faith but erroneous interpretation of 6103. Click here to open an Adobe document displaying the entire code section. You are responsible for complying with the entire code section, but if you are already familiar with it, you are not required to read it every year to satisfactorily complete this training. Also, you can come back to this training at any time to reference this document. How to avoid unauthorized disclosure. Tips for protecting confidential information, including FTI. Follow appropriate physical and information security guidelines at all times. Make sure any reports, electronic or paper, using FTI are properly labeled as such. A large red FTI on a spreadsheet or Word document, or hand-marked red FTI on a paper file or document is sufficient. Indicating precisely which parts of the report are FTI is preferable, but is not required if not possible. Do not use or print off any FTI without a true business need. Do not email FTI unless the approved procedure outlined in the Department Policy ODT 300 and procedures for emailing internal and external recipients using Secure Zip. Do not ever include FTI in the body of an email. Dispose of confidential information appropriately, whether on paper or digital media, by shredding or completely deleting it. Do not leave confidential tax information on computer screens when you are away from the computer workstation. Protect laptop computers and removable media that contain confidential taxpayer information. Do not commingle data. Keep federal tax information separate from other types of information. Where physical separation is impractical, The file should be clearly labeled to indicate that the file contains federal tax information. Discuss confidential federal tax matters only with those personnel who have a need to know the information for a tax administration purpose. Do not discuss confidential tax matters on coffee breaks, at home, or outside the office. Observe the clean desk policy. Do not leave confidential information unattended at your desk. Prepare all correspondence carefully. Be sure to completely overwrite the information added to any pattern letters you may be using. Review all correspondence before sending to ensure that the text and all enclosed materials, reports, attachments, schedules, and other inserts, are intended for the recipient. Use a document receipt to verify that confidential materials has been properly received when information is mailed or hand-carried. Use double-sealed envelopes when mailing confidential tax information, or take other precautions to prevent viewing of actual content. Sensitive information, regardless of its form, electronic information in any form, for example, on a hard drive, tape disk, or other portable storage device, paper records, video or other audio recordings of any type, and databases, must be protected from unauthorized disclosure. Immediately report all unintentional or inadvertent unauthorized disclosure of tax information to the disclosure officer. Do not take pictures, selfies, or group shots in areas that may have returns or return information, including areas where computer screens, copy areas, classified boxes, or shred bins may be present. ITBN screens, faxing FTI, and storing FTI portably. What is an ITBN screen? It includes the original return info received from the IRS for taxpayers filing a federal return using an Ohio address. Is it okay to print ITBN screens? It is ODT policy that the ITBN screens will not be printed. This is to ensure that there will not be an inadvertent disclosure of federal information. If you believe this policy will significantly impact your work, please discuss the matter with your supervisor and administrator to see if exceptions are warranted. Is it okay to fax returns or return information received from the IRS? It is ODT's policy that returns or return information received from the IRS will not be faxed. This is to ensure that there will not be an inadvertent disclosure of federal tax information. If you believe that exceptions are warranted, please discuss the matter with your supervisor and administrator. Is it okay to store returns or return information received from the IRS on portable storage devices? It is ODT's policy that returns or return information received from the IRS must not be stored on portable storage devices such as external hard drives, flash drives, etc. This is to ensure that there will not be an inadvertent disclosure of federal tax information. If you believe that exceptions are warranted, please discuss the matter with your supervisor and administrator. Telecommuters. Telecommuters are prohibited from printing documents or other data accessed on their departmental computer that contain FTI. Ohio Revised Code, ORC, General Provisions. The general prohibition against divulging tax information is found in Ohio Revised Code, section 5703.21. This section applies to all ODT employees and all Ohio taxes. No agent at the Department of Taxation, except the agent's report to the department or when called on to testify in any court or proceedings, shall divulge any information acquired by the agent as to the transactions, property, or business of any person while acting or claiming to act under the orders of the department. Whoever violates this provision shall thereafter be disqualified from acting as an officer or employee or in any other capacity under appointment or employment of the department. This statute prohibits employees from releasing taxpayer information to anyone outside the department, even if the outsider is a union representative, employee of another state agency, or the taxpayer's attorney. ORC-specific taxes. At minimum, you should review the tax or system that is specific to your daily job duties. However, you are strongly encouraged to review all information. Personal property tax, Revised Code 5711.101, provides that the balance sheet and other financial statements submitted along with personal property tax returns are not public records, but are confidential documents for the use of ODT only assessing taxable property. Estate taxes, Revised Code 5731.90, provides that estate tax returns and supporting documents are confidential information and such records may not be released except on the order of a probate court. Corporate franchise tax, Revised Code 5733.03G, provides that any information gained as a result of corporate franchise tax returns, investigations, hearings, or verifications is confidential and may not be disclosed except in the performance of an employee's official duties or upon the order of a court. However, RC 5715.50 permits the disclosure of the names and addresses of the statutory agents of corporations and the names of corporate officers and directors. Sales use tax, Revised Code 5739.35, prohibits employees from divulging any information acquired as a result of any investigation pursuant to the sales tax chapter except as may be required by the Commissioner or by a court. RC 5741.24 provides a similar prohibition regarding use tax. However, RC 5703.21C7 and RC 5715.50B provide that the department employees may disclose to the public the name, location, license number, and information regarding the activities or inactive status of a vendor's license, direct payment permit, or a seller's use tax account. Click here to view a list of vendor-related FAQs. Personal income and certain pass-through entity taxes, Revised Code 5747.18c, specifies that any information gained as the result of reviewing personal income or certain pass-through entity tax returns or conducting investigations, hearings, or verifications is confidential, and no employee of the department may disclose any such information except for official purposes or in accordance with a proper judicial order. Commercial activity tax, Revised Code 5751.12, provides that CAT information is confidential as provided for in Section 5703.21 of the Revised Code. However, the tax commissioner shall make public an electronic list of all actively registered persons required to remit the CAT, including legal names, trade names, addresses, and account numbers. In addition, such list shall include all persons that canceled their registration at any time during the preceding 4 calendar years, including the date the registration was canceled. OFAST is the official field agent support tool. It provides tax auditors a central location to store audit information. All information stored in OFAST is subject to the same disclosure rules. Criminal Investigations Division, RC 5743.45B and RC 5735.33 provide that no employee shall divulge information acquired as a result of an investigation pursuant to Chapters 5728, Fuel Use Tax, 5735, Motor Fuel Tax, 5739, Sales Tax, 5741, Use Tax, 5743, Cigarette Tax, and 5747, Income Tax, except as required by the tax commissioners or by the court. Casino Tax, RC 5753.10, provides that certain records required to be kept by casino operators and available for inspection by the tax commissioner are confidential. Accessing confidential personal information, CPI. There are 3 sources to guide ODT employees in accessing confidential personal information: Ohio Revised Code 1347.15, Ohio Administrative Code Chapter 5703-31, ODT Policy Number ODT-101, Detailed Instructions when Accessing CPI. Click here to open the entire guidelines for ODT employees accessing confidential personal information tutorial. You are responsible for complying with the entire tutorial, but if you are already familiar with it, you are not required to read it every year to satisfactorily complete this training. Also, you can come back to this training at any time to reference this tutorial. Social Security numbers. All department personnel are required to redact the first 5 digits of Social Security numbers, SSNs, used in correspondence and emails. Please use SSNs in correspondence and emails only when absolutely necessary for the recipient. Some specific examples, a non-exhaustive list, includes auditors must only use the last 4 digits of the SSN on all audit remarks and other correspondences unless the full SSN is absolutely required for the recipient's purposes. Any emails regarding taxpayer accounts from any of the business units or from TPS should only use the last 4 digits of the SSN, or preferably just use an internal identifying account number, such as an assessment number, obligation number, etc. Any emails regarding a taxpayer account to or from the ISD help desk should only use the last 4 digits of the SSN, or preferably an internal identifying account number, such as an assessment number, obligation number, etc. If screenshots are sent, please use the snipping tool available on your desktop and redact any personal information, especially the first 5 digits of the SSN. Any emails from outside sources, taxpayers, taxpayer representative, courts, investigators, and other agencies that contain sensitive information, including CPI and FTI, should be saved to a network location and deleted from Outlook as soon as possible after receipt. Emailing CPI and FTI. All employees must adhere to ODT requirements regarding emailing CPI and FTI. These requirements are set forth in Policy ODT 300, Use of Internet, Email, and Other IT Resources, and the following procedures. The procedure on emailing FTI to internal and external recipients. Accordingly, all internal and external emails that contain CPI, but not FTI, must be sent using SecureZip in Outlook. If the email contains FTI, the guidelines in the foregoing procedures must be followed. Our emails are now stored in the cloud. Please assume that any email you send can be seen by anyone and draft accordingly. Links to ODT 300, emailing FTI to internal and external recipients, email procedures, email cleanup strategies. Data research systems. Data research systems DRSs, such as Westlaw Clear or Accurate, enable certain agents and certain support staff to obtain information for use in verifying taxpayer identities, redirecting returned mail, and other purposes. Please keep in mind the following requirements and policies of ODT regarding the use of such systems. DRSs are only to be used for ODT business. Recently, several Ohio employees have been disciplined by the Inspector General for improperly browsing data research systems. Information from DRSs, including individual and business information, is to be treated as confidential information. This is true even though much of the information that can be retrieved through DRS comes from public records. DRS licenses, names and passwords, cannot be transferred or used by people other than those people to which they have been assigned. If a DRS user is transferred or resigned, or if a decision is made to change users, please notify Laura McDonnelly 614-466-2166 to have the license reassigned. Non-ODT systems. CPI and CPI containing FTI retrieved from non-ODT systems such as CUBS and the IRS TDS system must be handled with the same sensitivity, care, and discretion as those obtained from ODT systems. Personnel utilizing such systems to retrieve information are subject to the same disclosure rules and laws outlined elsewhere in this training. Disposing of CPI. What do I do with CPI when it is no longer needed? It is ODT's policy that CPI is to be shredded when its business purpose or need no longer exists, as long as shredding the info is done in accordance with ODT record retention policies and schedules. This is to ensure that there will not be an inadvertent disclosure of CPI. Questions regarding record retention should be directed to Carrie Ryan. User IDs and passwords. ODT employees are required to treat passwords as sensitive, confidential information. You are prohibited from sharing passwords assigned to you with anyone, including administrative personnel, IT personnel, or supervisors. See Policy ODT 303 Passwords for more information. How to handle requests. Taxpayer requests. General rule: after verifying ID, we can provide taxpayers with their own returns and records. Walk-ins. After verifying the taxpayer's ID, driver's license or other picture ID, we can provide taxpayers with copies of his/her own return records. Written requests. Click here to view the flowchart. If an individual taxpayer submits a signed written request for their own return and/or records, we can mail or fax copies to the taxpayer at the address fax number they provided after verifying the signature, if possible. This will not be possible for electronically filed returns. For businesses, estates, etc., a principal, financial officer, executor, trustee, receiver, general partner member must sign the request on business letterhead. Telephone requests. Click here to view the flowchart. If the taxpayer is requesting us to mail confidential tax return and payment information to the most current address on our system, you can do so without asking any additional information of the taxpayer. If the taxpayer is requesting anything other than mailing of tax returns to their current address, i.e. mailing returns to a new address, changing the address, questions about the taxpayer's account, email information, or mail or email information to someone other than the taxpayer, we must have reasonable assurances that we are talking to the taxpayer. Taxpayer email requests. Click here to view flowchart. If the email request contains a scanned handwritten signature, then the department will treat the email the same as a signed requested on paper. See above. If the email request does not contain a scanned handwritten signature, then the department will treat the email request the same as a telephone request. Above. Taxpayer representative requests. General rule: we need a completed Form TBOR-1 before we can release information. In all cases where it is a problem for the representative to provide a complete TBOR-1, we can mail the requested information to the taxpayer at the address on the system, and the taxpayer can give it to the representative. Walk-ins. We need a completed TBOR-1 before we can release copies of returns or printouts to taxpayer information. However, we can provide limited verbal information. See the attached verbal flowchart. Written requests. We need a completed TBOR-1 before we can release copies of returns or printouts of taxpayer information. Some exceptions. Click here to view the flowchart. Telephone requests. Taxpayer information may be given verbally to a representative over the phone if the representative is able to verify his authority to represent the taxpayer by giving us the taxpayer's name, address, account number, and the particulars of the situation the representative is inquiring about, such as a refund amount, assessment amount, etc. Click here to view the flowchart. Email requests. Have the representative complete and return a TBOR-1. This may be done by email. Please note that we do not honor the IRS Form 2848, even if the form expressly refers to Ohio taxes. Other miscellaneous requests. Requests for taxpayer information from the news media, government agencies, elected officials, or the general public. Refer requests from the media to ODT's Communication Office, 614-466-0099. Refer requests from government agencies and elected officials to the Legislative Division at 614-466-3960. Refer public records requests to Carrie Ryan, the Disclosure Officer, at 614-466-1956. Refer subpoena requests to Carrie Ryan at 614-466-1956. And refer requests from the IRS, other states, to Carrie Ryan, 614-466-1956. Course completion. Please complete all of the following steps to successfully complete this course. 1. Complete the quiz. Now that you reviewed all the content for the course, the following link will take you to a quiz that includes questions to help you review what is covered in the course. Click here for the quiz. 2. Print and sign the acknowledgement form. After taking the quiz, print out the acknowledgement form and return it to your supervisor or ODT contact. You have completed the required disclosure training. You may now close this window. Thank you for participating in the annual disclosure training. Please return the acknowledgement form to your supervisor.